If you're like a lot of people this year, you're probably panicking because the holidays are right around the corner and you may have a hobbyist that you want to shop for and you don't want to buy them more minis. I'm going to give you some things you can pick out, be it crafting supplies or tools or just nifty little things that they might enjoy that are not more pile of shame added onto their already existing pile of holiday shame. I'm Savage Brewski and I'm going to show you guys a ton of good ideas that you can get your hobby friends and family this holiday season. So get your chisels out. I'm just going to start rambling these off and showing them off to you, my lovely viewer, by camera. I know what you're thinking. You could just buy more miniatures, more models. But if you're like me and you're like anyone else, you have a pile of miniatures not yet painted, and that's the last thing you want to think of. You love the models, but you don't want to have yet another thing undone. The first thing you can go to is crafting supplies. Now, this is for anyone who does terrain building or dioramas. Maybe they're into different types of model building other than the miniature wargame hobby. Doesn't really matter. But the first and easiest thing you can always get is craft paints. I prefer Plaid brand. You can get these fairly cheap for as little as $1, maybe less a bottle. You can get bigger ones depending on what you have around you. You can order them online. There's tons of brands, tons of types. Simple acrylic paints go a long way. Another thing you can get a lot of people, especially if they're terrainiacs, is Mod Podge. This is not PVA. This is actually a sealer. It acts like PVA, but it has some resin ingredients in it that will actually protect things like foam, cardboard, foam board. Basically, it'll make it so that these are a little more resilient, a little more durable. $10, $13, depending on where you are and how big of a bottle you get. But this has been an absolute lifesaver for me on a lot of my terrain projects. Can't recommend that highly enough. Another thing that you'll find, and I even found this in the dollar store if you really are on a budget, tacky glue. This is not PVA. This is a little bit thicker. This is a little bit more durable. This is the stuff you might use to bind things together if they're not quite sticking or you really want them to hold. This is something that a lot of people will use on just various odds and ends in craft projects, and it's just a level up from PVA. Another alternative to that is wood glue. Now, wood glue basically is PVA, but it's a little bit tougher. It's a little more rugged. It gets into nooks and crannies a little bit better, and if anything, it's readily available. This is a hardware store brand, Tight Bond. You really can't go wrong with that. I've even substituted using this for a lot of my terrain projects. It's just a go-to. Back to paints for a minute. A lot of people I find are just getting into and discovering the joys of fluorescent paints. These are two from Huge Miniatures, and I am just absolutely flaring that out with my camera light. Can't really do much about that, but these I find really go a long way in popping out detail on models, especially if you do things like set up a black light or a UV light for your games. If you want to make things stand out, if you're on Instagram and you really want to take a picture that's just jumping right out at the viewer, can't really go wrong there. Another good crafting material, again for terrain for the most part, but some painting application, masking tape. Now, this is absolutely great if you want to put some stuff together, and I'll show you a piece that I made in a little bit because that's another idea. You can mask off areas of models if you want to do camouflage or you want to do spray painting or use an airbrush. This is really durable stuff. This orange, it's just Scott brand, but it's a little more heavy duty. Very sticky, adheres very well. It's very tough. It doesn't puncture super easily. This is absolutely a terrain go-to. So if nothing else, and you have somebody who's crafting a lot of stuff and they're doing a lot of trash terrain especially, masking tape will save their behinds. Getting slightly into the realm of tools and things that your average crafter or gamer might want, you cannot go wrong getting makeup brushes, and I'll tell you why. These are absolutely amazing for dry brushing on models, dioramas, terrain, you name it. Your girlfriend, wife, mother is probably not very happy if you're stealing hers to use this. Get your own makeup brush, guys. You can always find packs of real paintbrushes because it's not really practical if you're trying to paint terrain using something like this. When you have large pieces, you want this or this. Cost me maybe $6 at a craft store. Really comes in handy for a lot of different projects that I get into. An absolute must have, and I'm very, very proud of this one. This is a razor style craft knife, and I just got an Amazon brand. I like these better than the dollar store varieties, the little cheap knockoff varieties, the ones where you can put the blade in and out, retractable blade types, I guess they're called. I don't like those unless you're using them on foam, in which case the long blade is handy. But for doing cardboard, for cutting thin wood, balsa, foam board, this is 1,000 times easier to control and cuts like a knife through butter. And all you have to do if you want to replace the blade is just pop it out and put it in a new one, and those are cheap enough to get a hold of themselves. This is one of those things that I don't see a lot of people with these days, but it really has made the difference in my terrain work, and especially prepping materials like cardboard, foam board. Like I said, not too expensive. This, again, it's Amazon brand. This was maybe $8, $9. Another good tool that some people haven't bit the bullet with to get is a hot wire foam cutter. Okay, now you will find various kits. This is actually my old one, but it shows up better on camera, so there you have it. If you work with pink foam or blue foam or green foam, whatever the heck it is, this is the, you know, the rigid insulation foam. You can cut it with a knife. You can absolutely use a retractable blade hobby knife, but it's way easier and you can get a lot more detail on your cuts if you're using one of these foam cutters. I don't know how well that's showing up, but you can see there's a lot of fine ridges. It's very clean. That works absolute wonders for cutting foam. So if you know anyone, again, that's mostly a terrain type thing, but if you know anyone into that, you can even get them sheets of foam, 2 by 2 foot by 2 foot by 1 inch sheet is somewhere in the ballpark of $8 to $10. You really can't lose. You can make a lot of pieces out of it. Sometimes people are stretching their budget because they need miniatures or they need something other than terrain. That sort of thing really, really makes a difference. Another thing is make terrain for your buddies. Okay, I'm doing a couple things here, and I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to say who's getting what. I noticed watching one of my friends' games, they don't have tons of terrain. They've got some pieces. It just kind of looks scattered. You know, it's a kitchen table type game, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I imagine he's going to be a lot happier if he suddenly gets gifted a couple pieces of ruins. And this literally, this is an Amazon box and some tape and some glue. And it really took me no time at all to just throw this together. I will paint it up and, you know, coat it and all that other stuff. But imagine getting a box of 3 or 4 or 5 pieces like this, and maybe a small battle mat, and, you know, a few other pieces of scatter and barricades, and it's like, here, have a game on me. That's a lot of time and effort that some people can't take or don't take. That's something a little more unique as well. You know, you're giving someone something you made and put your effort into, and they didn't ask for it, they didn't see it coming, they didn't know about it. If you've ever played a tabletop game on your kitchen table, and then you go to a store and you actually play on a modeled board or a really good looking battle mat with a full set of terrain, it just brings that much more enjoyment to your game. So if you can give that to someone else, that's pretty cool in my book. You guys have seen me do tons of these, obviously, and this next one is epoxy resin. I make tons of these crystals, and I've learned how to do all kinds of effects with these. And I find that, you know, I just give these out. Sometimes I'll have offcuts or whatever, off pieces that didn't totally meet the grade or whatever, but they're nonetheless very cool looking designs and shapes. And I'll send those off to my friends, and I'll just go, here, have some of these. They're nice little add-ons. They fit in very well. If you're into epoxy resin, it's really not that expensive to make stuff like that. The resin I used on this plus the mold, I don't know, maybe amounts to $25. MDF terrain kits. This is a Lasercraft Workshop Promethium Forge. It's just basically a fuel canister, and all that is a pop can or beer can with some MDF pieces added on. A kit of 2 of these is about $15. 2 cans of pop, however much it costs you to drink. I swear I can breathe. If you do a lot of spray painting, if you work with resin, if you have 3D prints going on and you're in an indoor space, one of these will go a long way to keeping you safe. People, I find, will cut corners on protective equipment. Don't do that. Your health is very, very important. So you can go to a hardware store and pick one of these up for about $15, $20. You can just replace out the filters when you're done, and they do make a difference. So please, hobby safe if you're messing with the more hazardous stuff. Tile grout, spray paint, resin, polyurethane, adhesives, chemicals. You like dice? I like dice. I don't know about anybody else, but there's a lot of these sort of mystery dice packs out there, and you can just get someone a set of roleplay game dice for $7, $8. Random sets, holiday theme sets. Sometimes you'll get, you know, lucky with resin or metal sets or the more detailed customized stuff. But those are always nice to have, and sometimes people want to get more games going with new players. They just don't have the materials, they don't have the dice. That's not a big spend. That's going to make their lives a lot easier when it comes to the tabletop hobby. So why the heck not? Short of that, I mean, you can always get a Mountain Dew. I just wanted to rattle off a couple of ideas because adding to the pile of shame does not always seem to be the way to go. But these are simple things that almost anyone in the hobby will use, between paints, tools, protective equipment, materials, or even going the extra mile and making some terrain for your friends. So in case I don't see you guys, wish you all a very, very happy holiday. Have fun, and I'll see you guys in the next video.